This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, we now bring you a discussion on new milestone achieved in India's exports. The participants are Ajay Sahai, DG and CEO, Federation of Indian Export Organizations, and Sonu Sood, AIR correspondent.
India's merchandise exports took a giant leap in financial year 2021-22 and hit a record high of $418 billion. Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal said it is an important milestone in the journey towards an Atmanirbhar Bharat. Mr. Sahai, how do you see this achievement?
It's a spectacular achievement when the government started talking about $400 billion during the time of pandemic. We were also a little apprehensive. But I think after the Prime Minister address to the exporter on 6th of August, we all were galvanized and he made us to believe that such a target is achievable. The good point of the target is that in each of the month of the entire financial year, we have recorded not less than $30 billion of export, though during that time, we also suffered some setback due to lockdown. And we ended the financial year with an export of $40.38 billion in March, which is a record high. The very fact that in 1 year's time, we have added $126 billion of exports, that speaks volumes of the entrepreneurial skills of the exporter and the ecosystem which the government has provided. And you have rightly said that this has come at a time when we see huge disruption due to pandemic and the logistics challenges. In this time, we have suffered container shortage, lack of space on ships, and skyrocketing freight cost also. Despite all these challenges and during the end of the financial year, we are seeing the geopolitical situation changing, which affected our export to the CIS. But despite all these handicaps, we have recorded $400 billion exports, and I think now the need of the hour is to build on this.
How far have the supportive policies of the government helped this surge in exports? Government plans of expanding and strengthening export hubs, export infrastructure and logistics at the district level. Do you think this will be crucial towards maintaining this momentum?
I entirely agree with you. Major contribution to this success goes to the ecosystem which government is providing. The initial challenge which we all face with regard to the liquidity, but the emergency credit link guarantee scheme of the government did came very handy to the exporters and they get the initial liquidity through the ECLGS scheme. We are very happy the scheme has been extended. Then to provide the competitive cost of credit, the government has now extended the interest equalization scheme also where our MSME manufacturers are getting 3% interest subvention. The complete zero rating of exports through ROTTEP scheme and ROCH scheme for apparel and made-ups have been provided. So now our export is not having any element of taxes and duties. To address the logistics cost, government is looking into the all-round development of infrastructure. We are looking into warehousing, multimodal logistics in a big way. The recent budget has talked about setting up 100 cargo terminal. We will be setting up 4 mega logistics parks also. So these will help it. And you have rightly said the new strategy of district and export hub is going to be game changer. This will make exports much more inclusive by bringing small artisans, craftsmen, women entrepreneurs, small business in the field of exports because the production centers are in the districts. So if we can map the districts, look into what kind of infrastructure or logistics gap they have, and we can bridge the gap, I think we can generate very healthy competition, which hitherto is amongst the state to the districts also. And I'm pretty sure that this scheme is going to be a game changer in next 10 years for Indian export.
So from engineering goods, electronic goods, petroleum products to gems and jewelry, cotton, yarn, fabrics, handloom products and coffee, India's diversified export portfolio shows India's manufacturing prowess. Would you agree?
One thing is very clear, this growth has come because the traditional sector of exports, be it the textile, apparel, leather, cotton, made-ups, agriculture and processed food sector has done well, and so has been the electronics, engineering goods, pharmaceutical, which are the sunrise sectors. And I think India's export strategy has to factor both these elements. One, to push the employment-intensive sector, which may not be that much important for generating export, but they are very, very important for generating jobs. But we also require export from the sunrise sector, as the share of sunrise sectors in total global import is increasing. For example, example, today, electrical and electronic machinery and automobile and auto components, these three sectors put together account for 35% of the global trade. And in this segment, our share is less than 1%. It is very good that the government has now introduced PLI scheme, which cover all these sectors. So I am looking towards the success of the PLI scheme. It has already started yielding result in the case of mobile. We hope that in electronics and pharmaceutical and AI sector also, it will be a great pusher for exports. And if we want to develop India, I think we require equal contribution of the traditional sector of exports and the new sectors of exports. And export diversification is not at the market level. Even now we are seeing diversification happening at the product level and the market level also. Now new markets are emerging for India's export. We have seen that recently we have signed comprehensive economic partnership agreement also with some of the countries. If you look India's exports of April to March 2022, our export to US, UAE, Bangladesh, Denmark, Singapore, Hong Kong, UK, Belgium and Germany, they have gone up by over 30%, in many cases over as 90%. And that shows that our products are accepted. And I entirely agree with our Honorable Prime Minister, who told during his address that we need to have qualitative manufacturing in the country. We have to produce quality good at competitive cost so that we survive in the global market. And that's why I think focus has to be on the innovation and R&D in export sector.
And do you feel that Make in India initiative has also given a significant push to exports? Do you see the multinationals coming to India and here and exporting from here? How far has that avenue developed?
You have rightly said, if export has to be sustained, manufacturing has to be on track. Unfortunately, in last few years, we have seen the goods manufacturing good, but then there is a dip. So we have to see that we provide push to manufacturing on a sustained basis, and therefore the government Make in India scheme and our Bharat scheme, Nirbhar Bharat scheme will be very, very handy. And I'm pretty sure that we attracting FDI in the manufacturing sectors also. There has been little criticism of the PLI scheme as people think that MSMEs are not covered under this. But I think PLI scheme is for a critical sector of technology. I expect large companies, the global companies, to come and set up base in India, and MSMEs get developed as an ancillary. We have seen that happening in case of automobile sector, where Suzuki initially came, they set up base in Gurgaon, and then auto ancillary developed around them. And today, many of these auto ancillary are the global major player in ancillary sector.
So China actually being seen as the major export source. Various manufacturers of the world, they get their inputs from China. And now after this China plus one policy has been followed by many nations, you feel that benefiting India?
Absolutely. I think China plus one policy of the global companies has helped India. India has already come on the radar of these companies, not only for procurement purpose, but also for investment purpose. Secondly, you should also recognize the fact that China is becoming a little costlier. So far, they have been able to offset the cost in the labor with increasing productivity, but there is an end to it. So today, I think looking into many sectors, China is not holding its competitiveness. And in many sectors, you don't require such huge volumes, which has to be pushed through economy of scale. So I'm pretty sure, and one of the reasons why Indian exporters are flushed with export order today, not only for 2021-22, but even for this current financial year, is the fact that people are moving away from China, and India is definitely gaining because of it.
Mr. Piyush Goyal said that every sector of the economy, be it micro, small and medium enterprises, farmers, entrepreneurs or state governments, all have worked together to achieve this goal. How important is this inclusive and participative approach of the government, where all stakeholders are taken together? I mean, you feel that is also a big push for the export sector, the surge that we are seeing?
No, entirely agree. If the exports have reached $418 billion, every stakeholder, whether it's exporter, government, state government, Indian missions, they all have contributed it. Because if one part is not doing its role properly, it's difficult to push our exports. In fact, today there is a scenario where the government has fixed a target for each mission, and these targets are very scientific, where for a mission they say what products, what value will be your target for the next year. And there is greater synergy between export organization in India today and Indian missions abroad. They work for a common purpose. States have chipped in. Today, states are looking for providing much more support to export than at any given point of time. We have been able to remove the notion that export is a drain on the exchequer. And today, states are moving very actively in that. There is a healthy competition because of the ranking of the states on the basis of the infrastructure, and new parameters are being added so that export continues as a positive and proactive policy of the government.
How do you see India expanding its export footprint amid Prime Minister's call for local to global? What do you see the road ahead? How do you see the exports expanding further? Where do you see them reaching in, let's say, another 5 years?
Prime Minister has given a call for local to global, and we are vocal about the local also. The good thing is that a lot of e-commerce retail platforms have come into India, and if you have today a good product, you have every opportunity to showcase. As a new exporter, we only want a genuine buyer and want to ensure against the payment. These e-commerce market players, they provide solution to that. And today, because of the fintech company, even a small player can get the credit without much hassle. So all these factors are definitely helping even the small exporter from distant town to enter into the field of exports. We know a number of very small farmers who are now exporting to the Middle East. And I think it is very important that we provide handholding to all such who wants to enter into the field of exports. In next 5 years, we are looking into $1 trillion of merchandise exports. I'm pretty sure by 2030, we will have $1 trillion of merchandise export and $1 trillion of services. We have much more potential in services, and services are not handicapped by many of the logistics issues. India has very high professional manpower at its disposal. We enjoy the competitive edge in services. Government is providing market access through various comprehensive economic partnership agreements. For example, in Australia, we are seeing very liberal regime for professionals. Even Indian students will be getting, after their study, roughly 1.5 years to 4 years to work there. So all these factors will help it, because once they get the global exposure, they will be more suited for internationalization. And I think one of the key issue which has pushed MSME export is the new definition of MSME, where export turnover is taken out from the total turnover. So that pushes MSME in the field of export, because the more you export, you need not worry about that you will lose your MSME status, because many of small companies were quite concerned with that.
From the last record of around $330 billion of annual merchandise exports, trade jumped to more than $400 billion. You feel that shows recognition among the world about the quality of Indian products?
Absolutely. There's no two opinion about that. There is gaining acceptability of Indian products globally, and our export base is much diversified. If you look today, I think much of our export goes to the developed country. US is our largest export market, followed by EU. So that shows that Indian exporters are quite competitive in terms of the quality. And I think that due credence should be given to the government also for developing various standards, encouraging the industry to adopt those standards. And I think that kind of benchmarking has helped Indian exports to get global acceptability.
You have touched upon the trade agreements, the comprehensive economic partnership agreements, the free trade agreements. Which are the major trade agreements which are in the offing, which you feel will help our exports? We've already touched upon UAE and Australia agreements being signed this year. So which are the countries or blocks you feel are important so that our exports and our international trade gets a push?
As a part of our strategy, now the focus has come to have these kind of comprehensive economic partnership agreements with complementary economies who are on major markets. So we have already signed one with UAE and Australia. In the pipeline is one with UK and Canada this year, and then we may be having one with Gulf Cooperation Council countries, the 7 member countries, then with EU 28 members, and South African Customs Union. So I think India is moving little aggressively towards free trade agreement, and that shows not only the acceptability of Indian exporters, that also shows that domestic industry is much comfortable now to yield ground to imports also, and they can compete with them with duty-free imports on equal terms.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on new milestone achieved in India's exports. The participants were Ajay Sahai, DG and CEO, Federation of Indian Export Organizations, and Sonu Sood, AIR correspondent. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel, News on AIR Official.